What would you do if you were robbed of $1 billion?
This is my city.
For Sean Rad, the founder of the world's most popular dating app Tinder, the unequivocal answer was vengeance. In November 2021, in the Supreme Court of New York, Sean Rad, the founder of Tinder, clashed with one of the world's richest and most powerful men, Barry Diller, the media mogul and owner of the conglomerate IAC, which at that time owned Tinder. Diller, aged 79, had essentially been Rad's boss, but now he faced a remarkable lawsuit from the just 35-year-old Tinder founder who alleged that Diller had scammed him out of more than $1 billion. The showdown would have been a David vs. Goliath story in its truest form, had it not been for the fact that Sean Rad himself was a multimillionaire, having already earned $360 million from Tinder, and now sought to convince 6 average New Yorkers on the jury that he and his co-plaintiffs deserved another $2 billion. The tone of the dispute, revealed in hundreds of formerly private texts and emails, was vicious and profane, like a bad divorce. Rad had written, "Fuck him, we're at war, we will destroy him," about the CEO who had replaced him at Tinder. In a separate filing, that CEO was quoted as calling Rad a fucking nut. Ironically, this volatile drama stemmed from the massive success of an app designed in large part to the nurturement of human connection, romance, and love. In 2013, Tinder was becoming a global phenomenon.
1.3 billion swipes every day, according to Tinder's fans.
The app, which had launched September the year prior, was redefining not just the landscape of online dating,
The new player in town, Tinder, a location-based hookup app.
which had previously been dominated by old-school platforms centered around elaborate, carefully composed user profiles and a much slower philosophy around matchmaking. In fact, it was revolutionizing data as a whole and would eventually become a staple in the romantic pursuits of millions of people. The formula was simple.
You just tell Tinder if you like them by swiping to the right, or you want to pass on them by swiping to the left. If somebody you like also likes you back, then Tinder creates a match in the application and you guys can talk.
Not least, the functionality around swiping either left or right, designed by co-founder Jonathan Badin, was integral to Tinder's success. It was an incredibly simple idea that caused Tinder to spread like a wildfire. But while its founders preferred to espouse the more virtuous qualities of their matchmaking creation, Tinder soon also fell into controversy, as more people turned into denouncing the platform for what they saw as a commodification of love and the promotion of a depraved hookup culture.
Would it be not more accurate, perhaps, instead of calling it a dating app, to call it a hookup app?
Criticisms aside, the growing popularity of Tinder was undeniable.
Your garage.
Meeting new people sucks, right? And we just wanted to make it better.
The app was originally founded by Sean Rad, Justin Mateen, and Jonathan Badin, and Whitney Wolfe, all of whom met each other at the tech incubator Hatch Labs in Los Angeles. Rad was just 25 years old when he joined the incubator in February 2012, having recently dropped out from USC. But like many other tech founders, he was better suited for the startup world than academia, and would soon come up with an idea for a dating app that connected users only if they had expressed mutual interest. About a year later, Rad and his co-founders filed the U.S. patent application for a matching process system and method that enabled communication between users who made a rightward swipe gesture on each other's profiles. In the industry, the technology became known as double opt-in. Sean Rad became the CEO of Tinder, and the app was officially launched on September 12, 2012. But while Hatch Labs had provided the vital means to actually build Tinder, it soon became a thorn in the eye of Sean Rad. The deal was that any ideas he conceived as an employee became the exclusive property of the incubator. Rad was Tinder's CEO, but not its rightful owner. All of Tinder was technically owned by Hatch Labs, which in turn was owned by the Match Group, a company whose ventures included Match.com, OkCupid, and Plenty of Fish. And Match was owned by IAC, meaning Barry Diller. Barry Diller was a powerful businessman and media mogul based in New York, whose influence stretched far and wide. He had been the chairman and CEO of both Paramount Pictures and 20th Century Fox, had overseen the launch of Vimeo and The Simpsons, as well as countless other prominent brands and enterprises, as well as presiding over such companies as the Expedia Group and the media conglomerate Interactive Corp. At the mercy of Barry Diller, Sean Rad and his Tinder co-founders had been granted a compensation agreement for their instrumental role in creating Tinder, which had become an extremely valuable asset under Diller's umbrella. For Sean Rad, this new deal meant that he would receive a package of stock options worth 12% of the value of Tinder, but this presented an entirely new problem. How could you determine the value of Tinder? Towards the end of 2016, Sean Rad was suddenly ousted as the CEO of Tinder.
being fired was one of the hardest things that ever happened to me.
To replace him, the IAC board inserted the older and more experienced corporate henchman Greg Blatt, who was also the CEO of the Match Group. Blatt was put in place to set Tinder straight. After his immediate accession, he wrote in a message to his superior Barry Diller, "I can tell you this place is so fucked up that it's unbelievable. To call it amateur hour would be an indefensible insult to amateurs." Blatt wanted measurable results, long-term plans, and accurate financial forecasts. But more importantly, he was now in charge of the valuation process that would determine what Tinder was actually worth, and thus also how much Rad's 12% would yield. The more it was worth, the more Match and IAC would have to pay Rad and his co-founders. But while the two parties, represented by Rad and Blatt on either side, initially sought to bypass a drawn-out valuation process by agreeing on a number between themselves, negotiations soon broke down. In April 2017, in an email to an investment banker he had hired to assist him, Rad expressed his feelings about Greg Blatt, who had recently frozen Rad out of the valuation process. "Fuck him, we're at war, we will destroy him. This is going to be the biggest lesson of his life." Rad believed that Tinder was comparable to an early-stage Uber or Facebook, and the valuation should land around $12 billion, making him a billionaire. But when Greg Blatt produced the final report in 2017, Tinder was valued at just $3 billion. Sorely disappointed, Rad cashed out and immediately sold his Tinder stock, worth around $360 million. But despite becoming a multi-millionaire overnight, his anger only grew. Eventually, Rad and his fellow plaintiffs sued the IAC and Match Group, alleging they had artificially deflated Tinder's worth by misleading the investment banks that ultimately made the valuation of Tinder.
They violated their promise to us. They manipulated financial information. They lied.
In a press release, they said that, through deception, bullying, and outright lies, IAC and Match stole billions of dollars from the Tinder employees. On the other hand, IAC and Match said that Mr. Rad, who was dismissed from the company over a year ago, and Mr. Mateen, who has not been with the company in years, may not like the fact that Tinder has experienced enormous success following their respective departures, but sour grapes alone do not a lawsuit make. Thus, in November 2021, Sean Rad and Barry Diller met in court.
2 years before the corrupt valuation, the defendants themselves valued Tinder at $3 billion. Fast forward 2 years, 600% growth in revenue. And the defendants say it's still valued $3 billion? It's absurd.
To repair damages they had sustained, Rad and his fellow plaintiffs sought a gargantuan $2 billion payout. Underpinning their argument, they showed a series of email correspondences that seemed to prove that Greg Blatt had been purposefully trying to deflate Tinder's value. Likewise, they tried to show that Blatt, during the valuation process, wanted to delay a new payment feature for Tinder, which would have generated a lot of revenue and thus hindered his deflation efforts. The plaintiffs also showed a recruitment promotion for Tinder, in which the app had been advertised as worth being upwards of $11.75 billion, far more than the $3 billion that Tinder's founders had been forced to accept. But the defense had an alternate story for each of these key exhibits. According to them, Greg Blatt's emails illustrated a concern about overstating projections to Wall Street, not to those responsible for Tinder's valuation. The delay of Tinder's new payment feature had to do with a problem with the App Store, and Tinder's recruitment promotions were just a matter of colorful advertising. Additionally, the focus of the argument now shifted to either party's behavior in and outside of the courtroom, with Barry Diller's side claiming that Sean Rad and his attorney had violated rules about witness coaching by entering the restroom together while under oath, and with Rad's side accusing Greg Blatt of forcibly grabbing Rad's arm in the hallway during a break, and then approached two women on our team and acted so inappropriately and shockingly in a way to intimidate. While they were interlocked in a weeks-long, vicious legal battle, initially sparing no efforts to defeat the other, both parties realized that they were approaching what essentially was a billion-dollar dice roll, since the monumental dispute was to be decided by just 6 average New Yorkers. On this ground, both parties agreed to a settlement out of court, in which IAC and the Match Group would pay Sean Rad and his co-plaintiffs $441 million additionally, ultimately putting an end to their vendetta.
I'm only burning my half.